Hello gang and welcome. Oh my goodness, what a wonderful time it is. Welcome to an episode of Mr. Motivator's Say Yeah. It's our well-being podcast. I'm your host, Derek Evans, aka Mr. Motivator. And this podcast will be an opportunity for you to experience well-being in a way you've never had before. Especially since COVID-19. Personal well-being worldwide has declined, including feelings of life satisfaction and happiness. We're existing in a society where people all around us are suffering and mental health is on the rise. So come along with me as we be discussing well-being and how we can improve the health of our nation. Featuring guest speakers, we'll focus on topics like mental health, financial well-being, or even social health. For example, did you know that people with strong social connection are 50% more likely to live longer? Or that by sharing laughter with friends, this can improve your pain threshold? These are just some of the things we'll be exploring, as our goal here is to highlight the importance of a holistic approach to great health and happiness. I can't get the words out. So stay tuned, buckle up and open your mind to an experience that should positively improve your mindset and get you feeling 100%. Welcome to Mr. Motivator's podcast, Say Yeah!
Yeah!
Oh, as you can tell from all that noise, we have lots of people sitting in here, and sitting on my right is Kerry, and then I've got people in the room such as Tracy and Renee and Christina and Rachel and Lish. They're all going to share part of what we're talking about. On Zoom, we have three very important guests. Right, we have first of all someone called Palmer, who I've known for a number of years, and she has a wonderful story to tell about, how she has overcome things like not being able to exercise for a lot of years, or when she exercised, she wasn't getting the benefits out of it. So menopause was really a killer for 22 years, but she's transformed her life and she feels so much better. Then we have April. April is a positive psychology practitioner with over a decade of leadership experience in homelessness, mental health, and she champions the integration of social health. And then we also have Dr. Kathy Fulcher, who currently manages the health and well-being program for the Special Olympics in Ireland. She has extensive experience in corporate health programs, sports coaching, nutrition, and weight management. I want to speak to Kathy first of all, because Kathy, I want you to set the scene. I want you to tell everybody what well-being is all about. What do you see as well-being? Explain it to us, please.
Well, I think well-being, its very nature has changed over the years. If we look at a few decades ago, people, they lived, in a much more basic way. They were active in their lives and their jobs. They ate food cooked from scratch all the time. They weren't in front of screens. They just had different, more kind of, balanced, natural lifestyles. So today we actually have to almost take charge of our well-being and, make it happen, because it may not. Our lifestyles are now bombarded with food and screens and stress and, work demands and family demands and financial demands. So we, kind of taking charge of our well-being becomes our responsibility sometimes. So I think the things we need to take care of might be our activity levels, our stress levels, what we eat, what we put into our bodies, our social connections, how we enjoy ourselves and how we relieve stress, how we sleep. All of those contribute to well-being, and how important they are to each one of us is different.
Sure. And in fact, if I recall, which I do, my dad every single morning used to get on his bike and he'd ride to work. And that was a scene back in the 1960s, yes?
Yes, absolutely. It was part of lifestyles that, people moved as part of their lifestyle. They didn't necessarily go to the gym or, go for workouts. They were active as part of their natural lifestyle. And they didn't spend as many hours as we currently do sitting in front of screens.
Yeah, because we need organized activities now, whereas in those days, your lifestyle dictated exactly how fit you were going to be, yes?
Yes, exactly. And so it almost has become harder to be active unless you make a planned effort to. Well, that's what we'd be led to believe. But then if we kind of throw that upside down, and the whole thing is, if you really want to, there's lots of opportunities to become more active around whatever lifestyle you lead now. It's that whole thing of grabbing opportunities and exercise, snacking, that kind of way. So it is, our lifestyles have very definitely changed, and they are not as active maybe as they used to be. But then we need to be more opportunistic in making them work for us,
yes, and I think,
as we've adapted.
Yeah, and I think we need to take responsibility for our independence, and we need to make sure we look after ourselves every day by doing something which is active, yes?
Yeah, absolutely. And not seeing it as a mountain we have to climb, but just little things all count. It doesn't have to be a huge, change in our whole lifestyle to be active. If we're talking activity as one of the pillars, little bits, every little bit counts.
Yes, yes. I want to ask you something else here, actually. This 10,000 steps that you hear so much about, what do you think about this?
Well, it was discovered. I mean, well, absolutely. I'd never say don't do it. If you're managing to reach 10,000 steps, there's nothing wrong with that. Is fantastic. But it was actually the number 10,000 was randomly chosen as a goal. It kind of came out of a Japanese study many, many years ago, and it wasn't necessarily a very scientifically chosen number. So that has come out more recently as we all strive to get to our 10,000 steps. But they've now shown more recently, the research, that if you're getting 3,000 or 5,000, it's better than nothing. So don't set that barrier of you must get to 10,000 if you want to be healthy. Anything counts if you're trying to look after your health. And if your starting point is nothing, then 1,000 is good.
Yeah.
If your starting point is, very low, every little bit helps.
But tell me this, where have we failed? Because in many ways, the message is not getting through to people about movement, is it? Because gyms don't have a queue going around the block. They still have lots of space in there. Why are we getting it so wrong?
Oh gosh, where do we start? We're not saying all gyms are getting it wrong. I think there's some great, people are achieving great things going to gyms, and it suits some people, but it's not the panacea for everybody.
No.
And they don't suit but it's like, do we all eat the same food? No, we all pick and choose different things when we go to the supermarket. So gyms are for some people, swimming is for some, walking is for some, dancing is for some. There's different types of enticements of activity for every person. But gyms, for a long time we thought they were intimidating because people, we'd be scared off by the experts lifting weights in the corner. But gyms have adapted, and they are trying to adapt to attract more people.
But
I
don't think I agree with you there, Kathy, because I think that gyms have got it totally wrong, because they give you, listen, you've made the effort to get up from your sofa, to walk across the road, they give you a key to let yourself in, and they tell you to close the door behind you when you're finished. If they were getting it right, they'll be intent on keeping you in there for as long as possible, so you socialize and mix with people. Don't you feel that's where they're going wrong? Because that's why people don't go to gyms. The social side is not there.
Yeah, I think, but that's probably, I suppose, tarring all gyms with the same brush. There are some who are exactly like you're talking about, and I agree. There are the no staff gyms where you go in, you get your fob, and you go and you do your workout. And for those who are really keen and into exercise, they're going to do that regardless.
Sure.
But yes, for those who need the social side, the classes, the connections, the fun, there's not probably enough levels of things to attract people of all ages.
No, and I think
and that's something that some gyms are getting right, but not all, for sure.
Right. I mean, there is a lady here who actually has a gym, so I'd like to get her take on what we've been saying. Come on, Tracy, hit me. Am I wrong that gyms have been messing up for years? They don't create a social aspect to working out and exercise, so therefore it's difficult to fill yourself, or are you full all the time?
Yeah, no, I agree on one hand. I think there are a lot of gyms that do that. We're a small independent gym, and we do exactly what Kathy has just mentioned. We try to focus on the social side of it, the community feel, so we try and bring them together so they're there to help each other, motivate each other. It becomes more of a social thing for them, for the mental health as well. well. They can chat, they can laugh. We arrange little events for them, such as bowling, picnic in the park, just to help them along.
Sure.
So it's not a chore. I think that's the thing.
Sure.
If you think it's a chore and it's going to be really hard work and you've got no help, then it is very, very difficult to motivate yourself to go to that
Sure.
establishment.
But you see, Kathy, the larger gym chains don't do that. All they care about is your membership has run out, when are you going to renew it? They never call you up and go, where have you been? We haven't seen you in months. Why are you not here? You know, they reckon
that's
in
true.
fact, if they were to actually get everybody who has a membership to come in, there would not be space in the gyms.
Oh, totally. It's like the airlines, they'd be overbooked.
Yeah, they'd be overbooked.
Yeah.
But listen, you mentioned something really important there, and that's the social health. So I want to bring in April here, because April is the champion of our social health. Isn't that right, April?
I like to think so. But yeah.
I think everyone wants to know what you do, right? Because I met you and I did an event with you, and I was amazed at what you do, because as far as I'm concerned, we need to get the word out there about Together Co.
Thank you. Yeah, and an incredible motivation experience. So thanks to yourself and all your motivators there as well down at Brighton Palace Pier. But yeah, so Together Co. For over 20 years is a loneliness charity, or has been a loneliness charity. It developed out of neighbourhood community projects, so neighbours meeting together and building community together, and it's grown considerably since then. And it also has done programmes around befriending, so matching people, and social prescribing, which is around prescribing the social aspect of health for people. So we're in GP practices, food banks, lots of different places. And what's been interesting for us, particularly, we had the pandemic, as you mentioned at the start, and then sort of developing and listening to the people we support. We support about 1,800 people a year. We have 500 volunteers. And it's a really interesting time to kind of talk about loneliness. The UK was one of the first places in the world to have a minister for loneliness.
Oh, really?
Closely followed by Japan. So it was we were quite front leading on having a minister for loneliness. So it's like, okay, but what's this about? What do we do? And Together Co. back in 2017, 2018 was part of kind of looking with the minister and their teams around, well, what is tackling loneliness and being part of a network. Fast forward to where we are. So that was 2018, 2019. We've then been through a pandemic, and I'm going to touch wood, as I say, coming out the other side. But, we've all experienced isolation. And in a bit, I'm happy to talk about what isolation and what loneliness are. They are very different things, as well as solitude, very different as well. But we have all experienced isolation from one another, not necessarily loneliness, but we have got that. And it's kind of understanding that, and we want to talk about it more. But also, people started to feel lonely that maybe have never felt lonely before. And also those that were already lonely became chronically lonely. So an example of that, we have 500 volunteers. We had to strip away all that contact of going into people's homes because of the rules. So if you picture that we have a person in Brighton and they get a befriender once a week that comes in, that is their contact. They don't see anyone else other than maybe a supermarket delivery. And that pulled away. So we had real chronic loneliness as well. But the problem is with all of this, and we've got the Minister for Loneliness, and we're talking about loneliness, and I'm happy to share, in a while about my own loneliness in my 20s, is it's really stigmatizing. And that's the issue that what we're coming up against. So when you are talking about loneliness, or you're feeling lonely, so when I was in my 20s and I say I'm lonely, I couldn't have said it then. I would have found it really hard. And actually, I'll give you another example, is when we'll get a referral from a GP practice for social prescribing, and we'll phone somebody up and say, Dr. whatever has contacted us. If we say to the person, and this has actually happened, we're Together Co, we're a loneliness charity, straight away we get, I'm not lonely. Whereas if we pick up the phone and say, we're Together Co, we help people connect to what matters to them in the community. We've heard that, and it's changing that narrative. And that's when we started to really dig into that, say, actually, hang on a minute, are we always making loneliness worse by saying you're lonely? Whereas actually, and where we're going to the social health part, is if we've got our physical health and our mental health, surely we have our social health. And therefore, like we've been talking about going to the gym, or, doing some mindfulness, surely there's things around connection that we should be doing as well. And therefore, thanks obviously to you joining us last week, we're starting to develop a campaign for social health. We've got an American academic who's been working on this in America, and there's lots of movement in America now. I'd actually say America are taking this further than the UK at the moment. We must start talking about that aspect of well-being. I do think time and time again it gets forgotten. And so when we talk about social health, it's the quality of our relationships and our connections. And that could be connections to people in your community, to a close person, to friends and family. There's lots of different layers to that.
But is
it's
it in
quality.
But is it in our DNA to actually go out there and actually just start mixing with people just like that? It isn't, is it?
Sorry, if it's in our DNA to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, ultimately, we are social beings.
Yeah.
If you think right
some
back,
people are.
Yeah, it's kind of, we are meant to be together.
Yes.
Right back, if you look at and that connects to physical as well, about our psychology. What happens when you're lonely is it affects physicality. And you start to, you get more anxious and you get more fearful because you're not part of your pack. So it is absolutely an innate need. If we look at the hierarchy of needs, we've got food and shelter, we've got belonging.
Right.
I think they put that next. I think it's just as important.
Right.
And I've seen that time and time again when I've worked in homelessness, for instance, and somebody is brought into a hostel that I'd be running or given a home. If they don't feel like they belong, they leave that roof and they go to where they feel they belong.
Right.
Because that is ultimately what we want.
Right. And it looks like if gyms, going back to gyms again, if they were to adopt some of what you're saying, which is our social health, that would increase the membership in gyms no end, wouldn't it? And what do you think, Kathy?
Yeah, I think it's definitely. And I think when we're talking about the whole social and the connections thing, I suppose it depends. And you're saying, is it something we genetically or we need?
Yes.
You look at the societies that different people grow up in, and I think it depends on, so if you look at the blue zones, one of the things they found that is really, really important to longevity and health is connection. And in those zones, it's often family and community work and, helping out. But family is a real thing. They eat together as big groups. Whereas you take it another side of things, is it part of society? You look at in Japan where they have pods where they can go, they don't even bother with a hotel room. They can just rent a pod for a night and be totally isolated in their own. They don't need to see anyone. And that suits some people. So I suppose it's what do you grow up used to?
Yes, I agree with that. I just want to ask Lish something here. Well, you got a question?
Not a question, but you've created a little bit of a stir where the gyms are concerned. So someone made an interesting point by saying that you get bombarded with emails when you stop your membership and you're no longer paying. So you'd only really hear off them around that time. Someone's actually mentioned that contracts are ruining it, but they haven't stated why, so it would be great to know why they think that. Big question is, how can you actually get motivated if you just have zero motivation? Yeah,
I think we're going to have to come on to that. You hear the motivation kicks in. But I think that's what we're exploring, aren't we? Because the bits that are missing as to why people do not either go to gyms or get up and exercise, that's what we're exploring, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, motivation for exercise is one whole thing, and then the whole gym experience. If you find a class you like, and the person next to you, you chat to them, and then they say, "Are you coming to this class next week?" You're more likely to go along. Now, the gym might not be doing anything to encourage you, but that connection you made with the person next to you means you might go along to the same class.
That doesn't always happen though, Kathy, because come on, they've got their headphones on and all they're caring about is how quickly they can do.
Not in Tracy's gym. In Tracy's gym, they have connections and they.
When I go back to where I started from the position of doing classes in the school hall. We didn't have your P90X because all they've done is actually rebranded what we all used to do back in the 60s. So interval training, circuit training have now become the hit, become all these fancy names. Those fancy names have brought more people into the gyms. What it's done is given the regular exerciser more choice to do.
Absolutely.
That's all.
But not the non-exerciser.
No,
Yeah.
but what brought it on for me was when I started renting or getting a bus and taking people to Southend and Sea, and we'd get in touch with local council and say to them, listen, could we exercise on the beach? And they'd say yes, and we bring down great big boom boxes, lunch and everything else, and we exercise on the beach, and we picked up loads of new members. But that's how it used to be. And in fact, you cared about the person who came in. At the end of a class, they didn't want to go home. They sat and they spoke to you for hours. Right?
Yeah, it's about having fun.
That social thing, which is what April's talking about, so that people have a reason to stick together. And when you've got your headphones on, I'm sorry, you're in a world of your own. You say boo to them, and they think you're something strange about you. Come on, you've seen it, and you're a long distance runner.
Oh, totally. Oh, I agree. I mean, there's all these different levels of involvement in a gym, and there's those ones where you go in, you speak to no one, you do your session, and you go home. And if you're that motivated person, you don't need it.
Sure.
But the majority of people fall in the middle who need connection. They need to participate in some element of social side of the exercise participation, and there's not enough choices in that space. You're right. I think.
You know what? I get asked all the time, how can I motivate myself? Which essentially was our question there.
Yeah.
How do I motivate myself? The one thing that motivates me is having a goal. Once I have a goal, right, I know what I'm working towards. And if your goal is you just want to change the way you feel, not so much the way you look, you just want to change the way you feel. When you go up those stairs, you want to feel, out of breath. When you go for a little jog, you can go far. If you want to change that and make sure that you can go far, you can go up the stairs, that you can actually be independent, then you've got to set a goal in mind. And once you've got that goal, then you work towards it. But identifying the right kind of club or the right kind of class is critical. And I must ask April this, by the way, whilst it comes to mind. April, I want to know, do you exercise? And if not, why not?
You've got me.
I got you there, didn't I?
Okay, so when we look at our pillars of physical health, mental health, and social health, I would say it's interesting because for me, in my 20s, my physical health was pretty good, actually. Yes, I did exercise quite a lot.
Are you going the long way around to tell me you don't do anything, April?
No, but it's interesting because it's always trying to tip back your balance, because actually I feel mentally better than I ever have done in terms of my mental health and my social health, but my physical health is not good.
Right.
And you need all of it.
Yeah.
So that's kind of the point, to make. And I just want to touch on motivation as well, because there's a really incredible theory called self-determination theory. And it's about what creates motivation in humans. And it's kind of a multiple of different theories pulled together over many, many years of research developed from the 70s. And it says you need 3 things for motivation, but the internal motivation to really go up and do things, not external. You need belonging, which we've been talking about. You need competence, so that you're developing something, and you need autonomy. And you need those things in equal measure. So if you think about you're trying to motivate someone to go to a gym, or motivate someone to start something because they're not motivated with anything, you've got to work out, well, what choice are you giving them and control around their autonomy? What do they see themselves as, and where do they feel they belong? My point is, I don't feel I belong in a gym right now. I don't want to walk in there.
No.
I'm not fit right now. I don't want to go in there. I'm overweight.
And you don't have to.
But that's the point. If I could find those things, and then also the competence, how am I going to develop myself bit by bit, which is kind of, Kathy was talking earlier about exercise snacking.
But April, there's this guy I know, right, who actually does these classes, and he's incredible. I mean, he'll give you all those things, right? And you don't have to go into a gym. I mean, he's got this wonderful club you can join and do the classes for free. I'm going to come back to you because we've got something else I want to ask you, but I want to touch on obesity. Before we do that, I'm going to go to the Mad Professor and see what she has to say about obesity. Mad Professor?
Here we go, Motivator. Obesity. 1 out of 4 adults and in every 5 children aged 10 to 11 are living with obesity. The estimated annual NHS spend on obesity-related disease is $6.5 billion. Wow!
Can you believe it? 6.5 billion is what it costs the NHS every year because of obesity-related illnesses. Now, obesity is a medical condition. But when dealing with obesity, there are many reasons why people put on weight. It could be medical, it could be, a health issue that you have, or it could be just downright laziness. Agree, Kathy?
Yes. Well, okay. No, yes and no. Yes and no. I don't think so, actually.
Okay.
Because, and we actually, a bit more recently, and the goalposts and everything about it have changed. More recently, obesity has been identified as a chronic relapsing illness. That should be characterized in the same way as diabetes and cardiovascular disease and kidney disease, that it is something that will keep recurring and that is not not everyone who's obese, needs to be tarred with the same brush. And if you think about the body, if we give blood, the body after a few weeks, it will regain the hemoglobin we lost, and it will be the same, same contents of blood that it was before we gave that pint of blood. In the same way, the new theory is if we lose weight and we don't change the environment and the habits, we will regain that weight very quickly again.
Agreed.
Because the body will regain its natural point.
Yes.
So there's that theory, and that's why the new medications have come out, the Ozempics and the other drugs, Wegovy, have come out more recently to help combat the relapsing state of obesity. But if we also then look at another element, and there's a whole new movement as well in trying to change our eating and our food environment, because contrary to many, many years ago, where people cooked food from scratch, now we are faced with everywhere we go, there's food. There's advertisements.
Yes.
There's if we're walking from one place to another, going through a train station, going through it, we are bombarded with food in every disguise and very nice packaging. So we're hit with it in many, many ways more than ever. So our environment to bring us to eat more is there more than it ever was.
I'm trying to figure out whether you agree with me in terms of laziness. I see what you're doing. You're being diplomatic, right? Because come on, Kathy. There are a lot of people out there who are just downright lazy.
Yes, there are people who could do a lot more.
Yeah.
If you have never exercised, if you're eating a huge amount more than you're outputting, so the balance in your body is wrong, and you've never really taken charge of your activity or never tried to combat your weight that's crept up over the years as your metabolism changes, well then maybe the good starting point is just to change your lifestyle.
Yeah.
But if you're the other person who's tried everything,
yes,
repeatedly, and you're just not getting anywhere, then maybe there is something else going on.
Yes.
So I think we need to look at how we tackle the obesity or the overweight issue in each individual.
Well, we don't tackle it by actually giving people a pill.
No, because the pill is not going to fix the lifestyle. The pill is only an adjunct to help the person, deal whether it's the craving or the metabolic issues. But they have to change their lifestyle alongside whatever intervention is taken.
Well, I've set this up neatly so that I can bring in another person who's on camera called Palmer. Are you there, Palmer? Hello.
I'm there.
Hello. Okay. I know you fairly well. And I know.
Just a tad.
And I know that there's a point at which you would consider yourself obese. Agree?
Yes.
Right.
That's so.
Okay. But there was a medical undertone, yes?
Well, we call it medical. It's medical and it embodies all of it, the physical, the social and everything, and that's called menopause.
Yeah.
I'm not blaming it. It's not the cure-all. It's not the big bogey person that's out there.
I had 22 years of it, Palmer. I had 22 years. I suffered.
What are you talking about?
I suffered. I tell you, I did. Didn't I suffer? Come on, tell the truth.
Oh, you suffered. You suffered.
There you go.
But we had the safe word.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, that's right.
Do you still have
Yeah.
the safe word?
I've forgotten it.
Oh yes, it's still there.
I forgot the safe word. No, but you had a real rough time with it because, look, I mean, I can paint the picture. Here's a person I met who'd walk into a room. She was at a size that she loved. In fact, she could eat anybody under the table. The food would go in front of her and her head would be down and it would never come up for air, would it? Right? And
True.
then baby came along and menopause came along. Take it from there, Palmer.
Okay. Well, baby came along. Obviously, there would be there would be excess weight and stuff like that, and also your attention isn't necessarily. It's not on yourself.
No.
Your attention
Your
is
focus.
on
Yeah.
another being
Yeah.
that's totally dependent
Yeah.
on you, and that's something that I can relate with any person who's going through all of that. It's not everybody can manage child rearing, work, and everything else that comes with it, because that's how it is. Not long after having the little one, though, menopause hit, and that was an uphill struggle all the way through that. I won't talk about soaking sheets and soaking clothes and walking around feeling as if you're a wet, cold fish. I did that for decades.
22
but
years.
It's just it wears you down. It wears you down, and it wears you down emotionally, and it physically, spiritually. It really does. And when you're an active person and you keep up your activities, you do all the things that you're supposed to do, you eat well, you eat healthily, and you don't see anything for years and years and years and
No
years.
result.
You don't see a result. You don't see a result. You go out running. I mean, I love running, or jogging, or whatever it is you want to say. I do all the classes. I've gone to gyms. I run 3 to 5 miles a day, and none of that. Still, your body is not with you. But I think it's also, it has to do with where you are with yourself.
Mentally, yes.
Mentally, it's where you are. And you get worn down, and you just do what you need to do. You carry on doing what you're doing, until there comes a time, and it's usually a time of crisis, when things happen in your life. You have losses.
Yeah.
You have health issues that's going on with other people that you love and care for. You have all these things, and what you're doing is that you're managing them. I can honestly say that I'm the glue that sticks the family. I will say that. I know that. That's what I was. I was trying to make sure that everybody was happy, that if there were any problems, come to me, da-da-da-da-da, whatever it is. That's me. There came a time when too many things happened at one time. There was bereavement, there was health problems. And I actually had to realize that I had to think about myself. I hadn't thought about myself for years. I hadn't thought about myself in decades. I just thought that I was doing everything and what you do. And so what I did was, and this was you actually who encouraged me, to go to a place that I've always gone to every few years, just to sort of reevaluate and just to be me.
Yeah, reprogram.
Yeah, just to be me. And this last time when I've been there and I've done that, I actually realized that I haven't been loving myself. I'm the last person to be loved. I love everybody else, but I didn't really love me. And that was almost a switch. So I started to love myself. I started to give me the time that I needed to be me again. And that's where it started. I came back. I started on my own program of what I wanted to do. I had a hell of a lot of help and support. I'm very fortunate. I had the support. But the thing is, you can have a plate full of food put in front of you. It's up to you if you're going to take a taste of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So that's basically it.
I applaud you
I
there.
had a plate full of food, and it was for me to take that and start eating.
Yeah.
And that's what I did. And that's what everybody else has been saying, which is ultimately, you are the person who is in charge of your destiny.
Yeah.
You're the only person. Nobody else is in charge of that for you.
Yeah.
And taking that responsibility, I just moved on forward. I was consistent. I changed my lifestyle.
Yeah. Great.
And I changed, but not an awful lot, funnily enough, because my lifestyle was already good. It's just where I was mentally with my lifestyle.
Yeah. Right.
You know, it was good.
Super. Thank you for that. You know, we will explore that more and more, because I think more people want to know about the menopause journey. And I think we will come back to it in more detail, because you kind of smoothed over that, but the journey was rough. It was rough. And the funniest thing is...
It's still there.
Yeah.
It's still there.
That's right. It's still there. And I always maintain that women, when you start menopause, men have prostate problem. Right, it's about the same time, and so therefore it's topics that we definitely need to look at discussing and stuff like that, right? And April, you can see how important for Palmer there, the mental side of making a change, yeah?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And it was when, and thank you for sharing that as well. And I felt really inspired by that, so I really appreciate it. And it's when you said, I needed to go in and I show that I love myself. And I think that's really so important. And it is that internal loving, not looking externally for it, or, you know, and that for me, when you said that, I actually had goosebumps, because that is it, isn't it? It's going, you know, and it also a kind of picture, because in our organisation, we have a lot of people with caring responsibilities, a lot of people going through menopause or perimenopause as well. And it is about putting the oxygen mask on first for yourself.
Absolutely.
You know, and we always talk about that.
All the
and it's so hard when you've got caring responsibility. I'm not a mother, so, but, you know, I see it and I'm like, my gosh. So, yeah, I just feel like it's like taking it away from sort of mental health and diagnosis to being actually, you know, talking to yourself kindly, knowing you're enough and knowing you're important. Yeah, thank you so much. I've really sort of taken that away.
Kerry.
Yes.
Do you mind talking about it? Are you?
I am.
You are?
Whatever it is, I'm it. It's very interesting. And whatever you've done, I've done it. And I've got the stripes and the... You know, we've all been through trauma in our lives. Everybody. I don't think there's a person that hasn't. And, you know, there's a lesson of be kind, because everyone is fighting a hard battle. And we don't know what people have gone through. And sitting here listening, the gym, because you are a family gym, you've got to work, you know, you want your people there, you're passionate about that. The gym that I go in, they don't even say good morning. So why would I spend my money there? It's convenient. The only reason I go is convenient. It's a 5-minute walk and I can go in there. I don't go in the gym very often. Like I say, everyone's like this. But some people like that because they've got stressful lives. They don't want to be bothered. They want to get on, get in, get out, like you said. But also, the corporate, the council gyms, it's like, come on, guys. You have a responsibility to your community. We've got a lot going on in our local one, and we're becoming the trustees now that we've got to take over, which doesn't seem right. And we want to go there, we want to use the facility. Another thing, reminded me of a story, we're sat here, yes, everybody has a trauma, and I'm not an expert on menopause and all those things.
You're not? Why? Have you been through it already?
I've been through it, don't you worry about that.
Was it easy? Was it plain sailing?
Because of my belief and what I teaching I follow, I tried to meditate my way through it and try to deal with it very naturally, organically. Things worked for a little while. But the biggest thing I felt that would help would just calm yourself down. Have little tools just to calm your mind and know that it will pass.
Yes.
And not get worked up, because when you do get more worked up about it, the symptoms are worse. And I know, and there's still little triggers now, and I think our bodies change, and it's honouring that and not being afraid of it, not being afraid of things, being afraid. I was thinking, you be that person. If nobody's going to welcome you into the gym, you go in there saying, hey, I'm here to work out, it's my gym. But to find that confidence within yourself to do that, you can do, you know what, you know my job, I do funerals. Nobody's going to care, because you, me, you, all going to end up in a wooden box. And nobody is going to care.
I'm not going in any box.
Yeah, you're on the cabinet and we're going to make him look gorgeous. There's going to be a recording of him and he's going to sit up halfway through and say, I'm not dead yet, I ain't done yet. And he's going to live on. Everybody thinks he's still AI. But it's the thing, the one thing we is about changing yourself. There was a story, the guy wanted to change the world, and he found out that was just too big a task. So he thought, I'll change my country. Found that pretty difficult. I'll change my town. And even that proved to be quite a challenge. And they said, well, I'm going to change my family then. I'll start close to home. That was the biggest challenge of all. Couldn't change your family. I'll change myself.
Yes.
And when I changed,
everything
family
else
changed,
yes.
Yeah. And I'd say the one thing of advice I can give to people is only you can change yourself and your mind. We've been talking about all these problems, but what are the solutions? Because we all know all these problems, and it seems to make us even more afraid. I think fear and guilt are the main core emotions that we experience as humans, because that is like that side of our mind that will always tell us we're wrong, we're too big, we're too small, we're not fit enough, we're not healthy enough, we don't eat the right things. Do you know what? Settle down, do that little bit that you can, just a little bit. Because I'm going to want to go to the gym because they're all going to be pumping weights and I'm going to be terrified, and I'm there and I'm bulging out my lycra because I'm 60 now and I haven't got the right trainers. But if I get the right trainers, I can run faster and that'll take less time. Just don't, really try not to worry about those things. We're not here for a long time, we're here for a good time.
Sure.
And it's not going to last long.
But it took practice for you to get into that space, didn't it?
It took a lot of practice.
Yeah.
And fortunately, there is a big spiritual wave happening now, and people are becoming more aware and having the conversation about mental health.
Yeah.
So it's not a taboo subject anymore. And just bringing that to awareness, but don't get yourself down in a pit with it.
No.
In Samaritans, we say, you help people by offering them a rope and pulling them out. You don't jump in the well with them.
No.
So yes, of course we've all got problems, but let's try and focus on, just do a little tiny bit. Like we were saying, we're older now. We don't want to be all muscled and heavy bound and addicted to, you speak as for he gets yourself. his guns.
I don't know about that.
Show us
I'm
the
not gonna
guns, beat myself up about it anymore. I ain't going to do it. And that way, just a little step. And then, I've experienced, I haven't done my daily workout. I'm going to, I feel right.
Sure.
And you feel better, but just by doing a little tiny bit.
Yeah. Well, I look at you and I can see what's happened in terms of there's a calmness about you. There's also a joy about you, and it radiates from your face. Lish, anything coming in on TikTok, Instagram?
Quite interesting actually, because a lot of people feel that they get guilty putting themselves first. So just going back to what Palmer was talking about, someone's put, Palmer, real talk, thumbs up.
Oh.
Hey, how did you dig deep to put yourself first without feeling guilty? So a lot of people have agreed with that and said they also feel really, really guilty doing that.
Do you want to pick up on that, Palmer? Do you want to answer that?
The thing is, what have you been doing all these years?
Caring for other people.
What have you been doing all these years? All these years you've been the prop. All these years you have been doing everything for everyone else. Why now? We're not talking about throwing the baby out with the bathwater. We're not saying not ever going to be caring for other people or anything like that. On the contrary, when you can love yourself, you can love others even more. When you can look after yourself, you know that when it comes to it, or if it comes to it, you are going to be the best person to be able to look after others, because you have already looked after yourself. You're already doing that. There's no point in running yourself into the ground and then you can't look after anybody.
Yep, I agree. Thank you, Palmer. Kathy.
Yeah.
Now, ever since I met you, which is over 30 years ago, you've been running.
I'm not that old.
You've been running, and that plays a pretty important part of your lifestyle, isn't it? But you've had a lot of injuries to deal with. What do you do when you're so badly injured that you can't move? What happens? What goes through your mind? What do you feel?
Well, I suppose whenever I get injured, which is frequent.
Yes.
I'm clumsy. I fall. I do. I do have little accidents.
Little. Every time I speak to you, you're in crutches on.
So yeah, but I suppose because I'm not running anymore because I'm injured. But because exercise has always been part of my lifestyle, in whatever form it takes, if I'm injured, I'll find something I can do. I'll find an alternative. It's not currently running. I haven't run in a year now, but I do lots of other fun things. I walk. I am in a cycling group. So for me, I don't see barriers. I see, temporary obstacles, setbacks. I go around. I can't go over the mountain. I go around to find the way forward. So I think I think a lot of people do look for excuses not to change their lifestyle. It's not the right time. I've got a lot of stress. I've got an injury, or there's something happening in my life right now. I can't. Whereas, and like what you said, Palmer, you were spent a long time pushing you aside until you said, there's never going to be a perfect time. So you made yourself a priority at the time that was right for you. So I think it's all about finding the way to keep moving forward, and that's what I say. As I said, I do. I find a way to keep going with the lifestyle path I've chosen, which is being active. It might not always be the same thing, but it's something.
I'm so glad of the position I'm in at the moment, in that Nottingham College are giving us this wonderful facilities. We've got all these students in here who are listening right now, and for them, they're probably thinking to themselves that this is old people talk. And
I hope not.
and it's amazing, let me tell you, young people, how quickly the years run by. And how quickly, I'll always remember when I was 20, visualizing 70, which is 70 years of age, and thinking to myself, right, I've got another 50 years left. And the years just roll by. And if you could take away some of the nuggets of what we're talking about, you realize the importance of you accepting the message of wellness, looking after yourself, putting yourself in a mental space where, in fact, you see exercise as just as important as brushing your teeth. And if you do it every day, even if you're slim already, if you do it every day because of what you do to those wonderful hormones that are in your body and releasing them, it gives you so much that you can use to further yourself, education-wise, health-wise, right? It actually gives you so much, the most wonderful purpose. It gives you a focus. So every single day, you feel like getting up. You feel like, hey, listen, I must go and do something. Palmer traveled all the way to LA last week, whenever it was, Tuesday. And immediately she got in, she was actually working out. And even though there's an 8-hour time difference, she would stay up until, was it 11 o'clock in the evening, to do my 6:30 in the morning class, right? That's dedication, and consistency, regularity with anything you do is important. And I think when it comes to social health, regularity, yes, April, consistency, going to somewhere regular so you get into it, so it forms a habit, is important. Yes, April?
Yeah, absolutely. And kind of start small, keep it consistent. I think in anything, physical health, mental health, social health, and for connecting, it is that text somebody you've been wanting to text, but you haven't messaged them for a while. Just send a text.
Yes.
Just saying, hey, I haven't thought of you. That is an amazing step. Do that. It's just very small steps, and it's consistency. And I'm going to take that small steps and consistency into my physical health, as well as they work on their social health.
I'm going to be checking on you. Now, I think
Oh no!
anything coming in over here, Lish?
Yeah, there's quite a few people saying, it is important to put yourself first so then you can look after others.
Yeah.
Because if you're not doing that, how can you possibly look after, people around you? There was a lot of comments on menopause saying how awful it is. Someone's put size 8 to a size 14. What's going on with my body? I don't understand it.
Yes.
Someone has also put, join Mr. Motivator's classes. He will inspire and motivate you to get fit and look after yourself. Yay!
Yeah! It's amazing what you can get for
Another
£5. No. Listen, I want to go to the Mad Professor. What you got to tell us, Mad Professor? Where are you?
Smoking. People aged 25 to 34 years are the highest proportion of current smokers in the UK, whilst e-cigarette was the highest among those aged 16 to 24 years in Great Britain. It costs the NHS £2.5 billion each year. What a shame.
Ooh. Can I just ask a show of hands in here, if you don't mind me asking? How many people in here smoke? No one. That's good. Anybody into e-cigarettes? No one. Now, there's how many? 3, 6, 9, what is there? About 12 of us in here, which is really good because I remember at one time, Kathy, you would ask that question and the majority of people put their hands up, yeah?
Yeah, it was far more the natural. It was like, well, of course, remember when smoking first came out, it was promoted as a stress relieving technique. It was good for you until they really discovered, what it was doing to you.
Sure. Look, there are so many elements that is going to happen in this podcast going forwards, and this is just a pilot. Just to try if this concept works. I like the thought of doing this. I want to in future get the audience to actually be throwing questions or making statements. And I think it's really important that we get the conversation going and get people to talk about things that worry them. Because I know from experience doing the classes, there are a lot of people out there who are insistent that they're not going to move their body. They go, I'd rather sit here and eat my burger. And I get that so many times. There's so many people who come on TikTok especially, and they'll go, what is the point of you sitting in the chair and exercising? They do it all the while. And I don't know how we're going to change people's attitude and make them understand that unless you look after your independence, you will become a liability. Eventually someone else will have to do the bits and wash the bits and clean the bits that need cleaning. If you've got a medical condition, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about people who have a choice right now about changing their lifestyle. And it's easy to say the gyms are at fault. No. We're at fault. We're at fault. Because just the standing up, just the way you sit, just actually being able to get out into the fresh air and go for a walk is something we should all embrace. Tell me something, Kathy, in Ireland, is the situation about the same as over here in terms of obesity levels and diabetes?
Yeah, it is. It's I think obesity is 1 in 4. It's about the same, and children. It's the worrying thing is it's growing more and more in children.
Yes.
So which we never really saw that before. And so it's starting which has the health concerns that start earlier.
I don't remember who I was talking to, but they said to me that, look, they would like to see the situation that when you go into supermarkets or the checkouts or whatever, you no longer see the sweet stuff. It's actually put behind a screen, just like they do with cigarettes. Someone would say, was that you, Tracy?
I was telling you that.
You were telling me that?
I was at it. Yeah,
Right.
It was a launch of this whole new campaign on food environment.
Yes.
That if we don't change the environment, we won't change our behaviour. So we have to make. So I know it is also the research showed at eye level of kids, it's all the colours and the wonderful things that it's all. And they did the research and showing what the journey for a child is through anywhere, a supermarket, a train station, and it's just so colourful and attractive. So the suggestion, we were looking at them, one of the questions that was in the panel discussion was, what might the food environment look like in 10, 20, 30 years time if we are able to influence change? And it was, let's put all the bad, not so much bad foods, the ones that aren't as good for your health, the sugary, the high fat, the ones with loads of colourings and additives, put them in black and white packaging. So it's not looking
not
attractive
colourful.
to the kids.
Yeah.
And so it's like the cigarette packs. It just doesn't look, it might taste nice inside, but we're not drawn to it the same way.
Thank you, Kathy. I just want to ask Tracy, go ahead.
Oh, sorry, no, I think another conversation that we were having was about somebody had asked me to do a diet plan for them. And I don't particularly go in the cereals aisle in the supermarket. So I went in there and could not believe the amount of cereals that are aimed and targeted towards children, and they might have the odd little whole grain word put on there so parents think they're good, but they're absolutely full of sugar. There's like Cookie Crisp where they're like mini cookies, and these are, you know, a whole aisle available for the children to eat for their breakfast. So it's the education as well, isn't it, that these foods aren't good. So even they might deem them to be a healthy food, they're really not, and they're packed full of sugar and other nasty ingredients.
A quick question, change the subject, not change the subject, but developing the subject. One-to-one personal training. You guys do personal training. Has there been an increase in the amount of people who want personal training? Do you find it's a particular type of person? What is it? What's going on?
No, I think it's very varied. You'll get, you know, people that have, again, feel very intimidated by a gym. They want that one-to-one. I've had some people with very, very serious health issues. A lady that was literally said, if you don't do something about your health, you've got 6 months to live because you'll have a stroke or a heart attack. She was very, very obese. And then you'll get the other end of the scale where somebody wants an event or they just want to keep healthy, they just want to look after themselves. So it's, all ends of the spectrum really. People have got their own reasons, and I think that's the thing. People have got to have that motivation, and like you mentioned, a goal. There's got to be something in there that clicks, that this is why they want to do it.
Sure. Lish, anything else there before we...
Yeah, so they're talking about the packaging. Someone said that's a great point about making the packaging less appealing. And it's so true, because even me, and I'm an adult, I'll go into the shops and if something looks bright and colourful, I'm like, ooh, what is that? You know, so it's just kind of changing that even for
You know, there's a
adults and not
strategy
children.
in terms of supermarkets why they put it at the level they put it at, right? And the thing is, on the bottom shelf is always the old stuff they want to get. Maybe you might buy it, but the middle row is the one which is eyeline.
Yeah.
Wow, we've been round the houses. What do you reckon then, my audience? Yeah? Someone wants to say something. Yes, sir? Yes, ma'am?
Yeah, I just wanted to say that last year I had a hysterectomy. I'm 56, and it's only just recently that I felt like I wanted to exercise again. So I just saw something advertising for a charity. It said skip 100 skips every day, and I started doing that 15 days ago.
Yes.
And now I just want to keep doing it. And,
I love it.
Well done.
I think you just have to get on with doing something, because then it breeds more.
Yes.
And one of the ladies that did it last year said she was doing 100 skips a day. She's now does 1,000 skips a day.
Oh my
That's
gosh,
awesome.
wow.
Brilliant. I love it.
Brilliant.
Yeah, love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Oh, Kathy, you see? All is not lost. I mean, that was really, really, really rewarding.
Yeah. Small steps.
Small steps, yeah. Listen, we've covered a lot, haven't we?
Yeah.
It's been great. And
really
in fact,
good.
we wanted to actually do a taster of lots of different things, and that way, later on, we can actually start zoning in on maybe just tackling one subject at a time, because I'd love to tackle the male perspective of menopause, because as men, it's tough. It's tough. But let me wrap up by saying some thank yous before we run out of time. I've had a rough time. What, you don't believe me?
It's so hard for you
I've had
guys.
22 years of
So hard
menopause,
for you
right?
guys.
Thank you,
Mr.
Palmer.
Evans.
Yeah,
Mr. Evans.
yes?
Yeah. Menopause affects the whole family.
Okay, there you go.
Believe it or not.
Thank you, the voice of reason. Thank you, Palmer. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, April, Lish, Tracy, Kerry, all the gang, everybody in the background and everybody who's here. It's been such
Thanks
a
for
pleasure being
listening.
with you. Let's hit that music. We want to go out with a bang. So hit that music, that fast track, and let's hear it. Pump it up. Clap it out. Thank you so much, guys. Thank you for being here. I love you.